So exercise 3 is an adventure game. You are going to create your own action adventure game. The goal of the game is to make it through obstacles and reach your destination. And the player, which is you, should be given 3 items of value. All of these items need to be set to values that are above 0. And as long as all of those 3 items are above 0, you can continue the game. If any of the items fall below 0, then you will lose. You do need to keep track of the number of rounds, and you can kind of determine how many rounds you want to play. But if the game reaches the number of rounds that you set and the 3 values are still above 0, then you are going to win. You have successfully navigated the obstacles and reached your destination. So I do have an example of a game that meets the criteria. And you can certainly copy and paste and run this to see how it works. But I don't want you to simply modify a couple values in the Great Adventure and turn that in as your assignment, because you will get 0 points. This needs to be your own game. And you can certainly model it after this one, but you have to have your own scenario. You have to have your own items of value. Okay, you can't use mine. And if you do use health, lives, and magic, your total code needs to be different than mine. So don't just modify the example. And if you have problems trying to think up 3 items of value, I've given you a couple ideas. And so you can do a fishing game. And so the items of value would be bait, your limit, and the number of fish you have caught. And then you could also do a chicken crossing the road or a frog crossing the road, whatever type of animal or human that you want. And then, you could have health, lives, and magic somehow, or, you could have something else as items of value. So, you can be creative on this. And then you will create a random object, a round variable to count the number of rounds, and a number to store random values. So here is an example. So I've got a number that will be storing the random values, and I've got the number of rounds and the random object. So you should display a message telling the player what the game scenario is. So in the adventure game, this was the scenario. I also indicated, how they would win or lose, okay, when the game ends. You are going to need a print method, and you can do one method, or you can do a separate method for each item of value. And that is something that you have to decide as the game designer. So I did 3 separate print methods, but if you just want to do one, that is perfectly fine. And after you kind of go over what the scenario is, you should print out the 3 items of values, so they know what their starting values are. In the game, the player needs to choose between 3 different options. And then you will create a variable to store their choice. So in the adventure game, they need to select a direction. And their 3 choices are left, right, or through. Okay. And so basically they're going to run into an obstacle and they have to choose which direction they're going to take. For the fishing game, the 3 options could be where they're going to fish. They could fish in a lake, a river, or the deep sea, or whatever you decide. For the chicken game, you could have the chickens start to cross the road, and then your 3 decisions could be to stop, to continue, or to turn back. You're going to need a loop that will create the rounds in the game. And the loop should continue as long as the 3 items of value are above 0 and the number of rounds is less than 10 or whatever number of rounds you decided. Okay, so here is a loop from the example. So you can see it's checking the 3 values and I set the number of rounds to 10. Inside the loop, you have to add 1 to the round. You need to call the method that has them make a choice and return the value they selected. Based on what they select, you are going to create a switch, and then you are going to retrieve a random number based on that choice. And then the random number is going to be used to retrieve a obstacle and the result of encountering that obstacle. And some of the obstacles need to be positive and some need to be negative. After encountering the obstacles, you need to print the current round and the values for the 3 items. So basically, they're going to encounter an obstacle. They're going to display what the obstacle is and whether an item gained value or lost value because of that obstacle. And then you will be printing out a summary of there are 3 items of value and what the numbers look like after encountering the obstacle. So in the Great Adventure, I set it up so that the first set of obstacles, cases 1 through 6, are negative. So they are going to be losing numbers. Numbers will be subtracted from their items of value. The cases that are in the middle, cases 7 through 10, are positive, and then the default is negative. So if they choose left, they will get a random number between 1 and 5, which means they are going to get a negative consequence. If they choose right, they will get a number between 5 and 11. Those are going to be mostly positive, but there are a couple negatives in there. And then when the player chooses through, they will get numbers between 8 and 14. Numbers 8, 9, and 10 are positive, but everything else is going to fall through the default, which is negative. So numbers 11, 12, 13, and 14 are negative. So here is what the code looks like. I add 1 to the round. I call the direction, or I retrieve the direction. So I'm calling crossroads, which is a method that returns a string. And then I do a switch on direction, which is the string retrieved from crossroads. And so you can see here's left, and I'm retrieving a number between 1 and 5. Here's right, and I'm retrieving a number between 5 and 11. and here's through, and I'm retrieving a number between 8 and 14. Okay, and then I'm going to do a switch on that number that was randomly retrieved. And so here are my case statements. So case 1 and 2, this is what happens. They lose magic. Case 3 and 4, basically here's their obstacle and what happens. And then this is what they're losing. Case 6 is also negative. So here's what they lose. Cases 7, 8, and 9. 7, 8, 9, and 10 are positive, so they're going to gain values. And then 11, or the default was for 11, 12, 13, 14, and this is what happens. So after going through the obstacles and having their values adjusted, we print the round, health, lives, and magic. Okay, and then once the condition in the loop tests false, you need to determine if you won or lost. So you need to check the 3 items of values to make sure each one is greater than 0. And if that is true, then you're going to print a message that you won. If that is false, you're going to print a message indicating that you did not reach your goal. And so here's an example of what that looks like. So here I'm checking my 3 values. Okay, otherwise you lost. Okay, so that is basically what you need to do. And, you know, feel free to make some modifications as long as you know, have created a game and you've hit the major points that you need to have in the game. You're fine. Feel free to ask questions. If you're not sure if a change will be okay or not, I'm pretty lenient on changes. So I'm sure anything you're wondering will be okay. But then follow the directions for submitting, which basically is you need to only turn in a game that works correctly. And if you have any compile errors or runtime errors, you do need to ask for help. So hopefully you guys will find this fun. I had fun creating the example, and I hope you guys have fun creating your games.